Hi, I'm Kalashian for Live and Invest Overseas, and today we're talking Spain. If you're thinking about making a move to Spain for retirement, as a digital nomad, or even just to invest there are some things you should know first. So let's dive in. Number one is that Spain offers a wealth of lifestyle options. So it has about an area that makes it a bit bigger than California. California and Oregon combined is the closest state reference that I can make. And it's got over 3,000 miles of coastline, both on the northern Atlantic, the northern coast with the Atlantic Sea, and the southern coast with the Mediterranean. So there's a SoCal vibe in Costa del Sol, but then there are these history-laden towns of the Central Highland Plateau, and then the ski resorts of the Pyrenees, the world-class cities, Madrid, Barcelona, and then these little remote off-grid villages. Spain really does have it all when it comes to choosing a lifestyle. So all you've got to do is define your criteria, pick a couple of areas, and check them out for yourself. If you watch as many YouTube videos as you ever could, you'll still be surprised at how different a place will feel when you get there for yourself, and how quickly you'll be able to tell the more places you go what you like and what you don't like. So always have to visit for yourself, but I assure you that Spain can deliver any kind of lifestyle that you'd be looking for. Number two is that there is a language barrier, even if you already speak Spanish. So specifically, if you learn Spanish in the Americas, prepare yourself to have to relearn it to some extent for Europe. So Castilian is the European Spanish, and it's quite different from Latin American Spanish. There's some words that are different, so vocabulary that'll be different. There's the vosotros tense that isn't quite as much used, especially in Central America. And the accent is very, very strong and takes some getting used to on both sides, because when I speak, I learned Spanish in Panama, and when I speak, people have to do a double take sometimes. And sometimes words are very, very different from one to the other. So I'll ask for something in between my accent and using the wrong word locally. Sometimes it can be hard to be understood. Then there are also the autonomous regions like Catalonia and Valencia that have their own languages, Catalan and Valencian in those cases. There's also Basque in the north, and they'll tell you in no uncertain terms that these are not just dialects. These are historical languages that predated the unification of the country, predated the Castilian Spanish. So people feel very strongly, as they should, that this is their historical legacy. And in places like Andalusia, for example, there are very strong dialects or accents as well. And when it comes to these regional languages, they are often given a higher priority status. So for example, in a restaurant in Barcelona, you might find the first language on the menu to be Catalan instead of Castilian. And this is true for a lot of tourist things that have multiple languages. The first will be the local language, the regional language, then the national language, then maybe French, German, English, whatever it may be. Don't let that discourage you, though. I will say that the Spanish do tend to speak very quickly, especially when you're not used to that accent. So if it's quite easy to get lost a little bit. Again, don't be discouraged. Keep studying, keep practicing. The more you get out there and talk to Spanish people, the better that you will get, the easier everything will be, especially if you're really immersing yourself. Try and read everything you can get your hands on, from billboards to signage to local newspapers. Try to get away from getting the English version of the menu. Another fun way to learn Spanish is to watch a Spanish show on Netflix. So Casa de Papel, the House of Paper, I guess it's called in English, is a wonderful Spanish show that was very, very popular. And you may have already seen it in English, but listen to it in Spanish with the subtitles on, and you'll start to get a real feel for what Castilian is like. And if you're anything like me, I love it. I think it sounds much more romantic than the versions of Spanish that I grew up hearing and speaking. And always just remember to remind people to speak a little bit more slowly if you're having trouble. Despacio, por favor. So number three, your US or Canadian driver's license is not valid in Spain. This is one of the big complaints that expats have once they get there. It's one of the most difficult administrative tasks people talk about. By law, you are required to have an international driving permit to legally drive in Spain, even as a tourist. And even if your car rental company doesn't ask you for it, you risk getting a fine if you get pulled over. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there, that the rental company isn't actually going to expressly tell you you need it, but you could suffer the consequences. If you become a resident, you'll need to get a brand new Spanish license with all of everything that entails. So a theoretical test, a driving lesson, a road test, all in Spanish. And, a lot of people take their time trying to do that and to get I've heard is quite an uphill battle. So pack your patience with you on that one. And as another little bonus driving tip, know that most cars rentals, especially in Europe, are always going to be manuals. So it's worth it to try and learn a stick shift maybe while you're back home instead of trying to learn two new things at once once you get here to Spain. Being limited to vehicles with an automatic transmission will make everything a lot more expensive, and the car rentals, the driving lessons, the tests, buying a vehicle, all of that will be much more expensive if it is automatic instead of manual. So another little tip there. Number 4 is pay attention when you fill your tank. So gasoline and diesel come from the same pump and there are just 2 separate nozzles. The diesel is a different color and it's a little bit bigger, and it's very easy to get the wrong one. It happened to many people that I know, friends there, on their first days in Spain. Every time I go on a driving trip in Spain, I'm always very worried that I'm going to choose the wrong one, and you can sometimes get caught off guard. So if the nozzle isn't fitting properly into the tank opening, know that you're probably grabbed the wrong pump. And if you've already put some in your tank by then, could have a problem. The gas station attendant will usually arrange a tow truck if this happens, but it will cost you several hours of time and money to get your tank emptied and refilled, hopefully unscathed. It happens more than you would think. Every time that I have heard somebody tell this story or I've told this story, someone almost always inevitably says, "Oh, that happened to us," or "It happened to somebody else I know." And let me just tell you quickly before I go on to our final things to know before you consider moving to Spain. I will actually be in Spain next week in sunny Valencia for our annual Live and Invest in Spain conference, which I'm always looking forward to. It's possibly my most favorite event of the year that I MC for. And I will be meeting there with our entire on-the-ground Spanish team, along with 100 or so of your fellow Live and Invest Overseas followers. We'll meet and hear from professionals, expats, retirees who are already working, investing, living in all these places. The event gives a comprehensive, in-depth view of our top havens in Spain that outsiders and tourists often don't know about. And it's tailor-made to help you decide if Spain might be the place for you, to show you where in Spain specifically you should live or invest, and to give you the knowledge and the support and contacts necessary to make a move with confidence and basically create your own customized Spain plan. It's a little bit too late to get a plane ticket now, maybe, but don't worry, you can still join us virtually. We'll be live streaming the whole event in HD, and you'll still be able to send us your questions in real time as we go through the program. I do hope to see you there, whether it's in person or virtually. Learn more about that Spain virtual pass at the link on the screen. All right, number 5, things you need to know about Spain before you consider moving here. You will need private health insurance when you arrive. It's known to be a country with a great healthcare system. It's very affordable and in certain cases even free. But in order to get your residency, you have to have private healthcare that provides coverage that is comparable to the public system coverage, meaning your plan can't have any copays or initial waiting periods. A couple between 55 and 60, the monthly cost would start around 200 euros a month for 2 people. And you might look into a few different companies. Adeslas, Sanitas, and ASA are some good ones here that other expats use. You'll need to ask for the plan that will be accepted for residencia. So look into that before you start thinking about making your move. And I have heard a tip from some other expats who have said that sometimes you can get a good deal through your bank. If you have a bank account in Spain, that you might be able to get an extra little discount or specialty rate if you go through that bank for your health insurance. So maybe something to look into. Again, the order in which you do all these things, it can really send you for a loop. So this is one of the things that we help with at our Spain events, is figuring out in what order you need to do everything in order to make it the most successful that it can be for you. Number 6, prepaid cell phone plans are extremely cheap. So you might pay, for example, 10 euros for 30 days and get 10 gigabytes of data, unlimited calling in Europe, and 200 minutes of overseas calls. This is already a pretty good deal, but the kicker is that you will also get a sign-up bonus, which is a limited time bonus of an extra 30 gigs of data. So it can amount to 40 gigs of data per month, which you might not even need to use. It's been renewed every month, or usually this deal will renew every month, but even when it ends, then you'll still have the nice basic package with the 10 gigabytes. The plan does not include text messages, but it's not a problem because most people in Europe do not use text messages. We use WhatsApp, a very popular messaging program that works on Wi-Fi or on data. So there are lots and lots of different plans. Of course, this is just an example of one from a friend who lives in the Costa del Sol, and the data is far more important than the texting because you're using your data to use the WhatsApp Messenger instead of the text messages. So something else to be aware of is that apps that you need will change once you move overseas. Number 7, the food culture is very different than it is in North America. So you'll rarely see people eating or drinking coffee while walking, for example. If you do, they're probably a tourist, an American or Canadian. People, because most Europeans don't ever multitask eating or drinking, basically. The full respect has to be given to everything that you consume. People tend to eat very late in Spain, so lunch is typically between 1:30 and 4. Dinner will not start before 9. If you're very lucky in a tourist region, you might be able to eat before that. But if you're really a resident and if you're living in a smaller town, don't expect anything before 9 p.m. the earliest. And Spaniards love to linger after a meal, so dinners can easily go till midnight or beyond with kids and, the whole family at the table. To bridge the time between lunch and dinner, at the end of the workday and dinner, people usually get together for tapas and a drink. So you will see people eating and drinking in between these times, but it won't actually be a sit-down dinner. Eating out is pretty inexpensive. You can typically get a 3-course lunch, the menu del dia, one of my favorite things about living in Europe, for 10 or 15 euros. And that includes usually a glass of wine or a beer or a soda, sometimes also with a coffee at the end. Tapas will be €2.50 to €8 a piece. A little beer is about €2. Dinner is usually a la carte, except for in the more touristy places, and they'll cost a bit more. So lunch is always the best budget meal to go out for. That's one of the big tips about saving money in Europe. If you want to be eating out as a foodie, make lunchtime your main meal and opt for a cheaper or more simple dinner. And so dinner does cost a bit more. Bear in mind that the prices are what you pay. Taxes and gratuities are always included. So you don't have the extra service, or you don't have any extra VAT being tagged onto the price of retail items or on food. And you don't tip. People make a living wage as servers here in Europe. So it's a very foreign concept to tip the wait staff. Some people here might leave spare change, €1 or 2, but it's really not a typical thing. So what you see is what you pay. Leaving a small tip, like I say, rounding up is appreciated, but it's not expected. There's no tip option on the credit card machine. So if you want to put your tip on your card, you'll have to tell the waitress in advance how much you want that amount to be. But they will always prefer just a few euros in cash over having it from the card. And finally, number 8, you can bag bargain winter rentals on the Spanish costas. A lot of people who have vacation properties in the coastal resorts will rent them out for cheap for longer stays, especially during the low season. So between October and April, this is a really optimal time to do this. On the Costa Blanca, you can snap up a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with a private pool for €650 a month, plus utilities. On the Costa del Sol, also known as the Costa del Golf, thanks to its 70-plus golf courses, you can also rent a 2-bedroom, 2-bed bath apartments with a sea view, just a 5-minute walk from the beach. It was €725 per month. It included utilities, internet, and cable. So it's the perfect setup to just spend a winter in the sun while your friends are shoveling snow back home. But it also makes for an ideal home base from which you can conduct your own searches for a more permanent house if you're looking to just get a feel for things before you make your official move or rent long-term or buy long-term. There you have it. Great insider tips to make the most of a move to Spain. And again, if you are interested in Spain, I highly recommend you look into getting our Spain virtual pass and joining us live next week. We will be in sunny Valencia. Can't wait to get there. And for more about Spain, check out our Spain bookstore at the liveandinvestoverseas.com website.